Thank you for tuning in to the Give 'em Rugby podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. If this isn't your first time, then you know there are some people that we have to thank. First on the list, the Cover Podcast Network. They provide all of the production, all of the video, all of the editing that you see on YouTube, and all of the great audio that you hear on your preferred podcast app. We're also proudly brought to you by cardtrader.com. CardTrader is Australia's only online marketplace where you can buy and sell trading card games like Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and also sports cards, NBA cards, NRL cards, AFL cards, NFL cards. They're all available at cardtrader.com. That's cardtradr.com. And if you sign up today, you will lock in a 3% sales commission. That means for the lifetime of your membership, of the time that you're signed up to Card Trader, you'll only pay a 3% sales commission on any card that you sell. Most other auction houses, most other platforms, marketplaces, some of the big ones, you're paying upwards of 12, 13, 14, 15, even as much as 20%. So sign up now. And finally, we are also brought to you by ASICS. Hit the link down below to buy anything you need, all things rugby, boots, apparel, sportswear, golf. They have it. Make sure you use our link because we get a nice little commission and that funds all of the stuff we like to do here. Okay, without further ado, on to the next guest.
Sorry, stop. I forgot two really important things. To help the podcast grow, we really need your help. You can do this by following our social media channels. We're at Give 'em Rugby on your preferred social media channel. We need subscribes to our YouTube channel. Again, we are at Give 'em Rugby on YouTube. And finally, and probably most importantly, we need positive reviews on your preferred podcasting platform. The more positive reviews we get, the more the show will get recommended to other people around the world who like rugby. Don't forget to join the Give 'em Rugby Club. You can do that at giveemrugby.com. It only costs $5 a month and it will give you access to a whole bunch of exclusive content, access to our guests, discounted merch, all that kind of thing. So please make sure you do that because that will ultimately fund this show long term and help us build out a bigger, better, broader production, more guests, better sound and all those kinds of things. So please make sure you join the Give 'em Rugby Club. Okay, take two, I promise. Now we're on to the next guest.
Look, my line, I get ready. Feeling too trippy, get it cracking like a levy. I'ma show them all how to party if they let me. Cue the countdown and release the confetti. The party don't start till I get there. Sit aside and the rest in it ain't fair. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Yeah, give me my crown if it's just right. You make it look good. Watch yourself, huh? Yeah, you make it look good.
Welcome back to the Give 'em Rugby podcast. Today I'm sitting on the couch with one of my favourite players of all time. I do say that about everyone, mate. So everyone who comes onto the show anyway. But today it's true. He's a Brumby, he's a Wallaby. He is Blake Schoupp. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me, mate.
No, thank you. Thank you for making the drive out. This will air in a few weeks, but you're sort of carrying a shoulder injury. How's that going?
Yeah, it's we spoke off air just before. It's sort of best case scenario with the shoulder, no major sort of ligament or structural damage. So it's just the AC joint. So just sitting out for a couple of weeks, letting it fully heal so that when I come back, I'm ready to go. So hopefully back next week.
Oh, it's good, mate. As I said to you off air, the AC is very niggly. I still have one on this left side, unfortunately, that's a bit raised from one that I didn't manage well. So I think that's definitely the right thing to do. But tell me a little bit about growing up in Wollongong. Wollongong, at least my understanding, traditionally not a hotbed for rugby union players. Some of the best rugby league players come out of that region. But tell me a little bit about growing up in Wollongong.
Yeah, you're pretty bang on there. I guess growing up, I had a pretty good, sort of childhood in that. Our family's very sporting, very sporty. And so, growing up, I had my dad who played rugby union and sort of coached me and my younger brother and my older brother all through like the juniors and all that sort of stuff. Wollongong as a town is pretty nice. It's, along the beach, it's coastal. It's, pretty good to grow up, good schools and that kind of thing. So I had a really good childhood growing up there. And yeah, on the rugby union side, it's still sort of, developing as we speak. The competition's sort of struggling like everywhere for numbers and that kind of thing, but there's still that sort of cultural history behind it in all the clubs. Shout out to the Woonona Shamrocks,
Shout out, nice.
my junior club. So no, it's awesome to go back there every now and then. I think I'm going to go back there in the bye week and watch them play. So down on the beach there at Woonona. So it's a very good spot to grow up in, and hopefully with a bit more traction, numbers wise and that kind of thing, it can continue to grow, like every sort of area, I guess. But yeah, to answer your question, it's a pretty good place to grow up.
Yeah, I'm never played because I like you as a front row, but I used to go down to the Kiama Sevens every year. Obviously, not far from Wollongong. We would typically stay in Wollongong because you could get cheaper accommodation up there than in Kiama for that week. But it looked like such an idyllic sort of spot. Great, I'm sure a great place to grow up as a kid. You got the beach, you got heaps of sporting facilities too, which I was surprised by because you've also got the Illawarra Hawks there who kill it, year to year in the NBL. But yeah, I'm always really impressed every time I go there. I've got a few friends who decided Sydney wasn't still working in Sydney, but Sydney wasn't them in terms of a place to live, and they commute from Wollongong, cheaper housing, better for the kids, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. I've always been a little bit surprised that Wollongong never sort of attempted to have a look in at the Schoupp Shield. Mainly because there's a lot of talented footballers, just not that, a lot of them are playing rugby league. Like, do you ever envision a world where Wollongong, gets an opportunity to have a crack in the Schoupp Shield?
I think that would be the ideal situation because the Schoupp Shield is obviously like one of the leading competitions in Australia, and often like similarly with what I did, like a lot of guys travel up. I travelled up to Southern Districts, which is only 40 minutes at best up the highway. So in an ideal world, it would be good to have like an Illawarra team, sort of elevated into that competition, or at least in like some sort of suburban Sydney competition. You know what I mean? So again, it just comes down to numbers and that kind of thing. But it would be the ideal situation to sort of elevate that standard as well and attract more people to come play. So
because I think there's a good case study there with the Hunter Wildfires now, who are, if nothing else, really competitive, really quite strong, or starting to become quite strong. So I think there is a roadmap there. The Canberra Vikings years ago had some success playing sort of first, seconds and Colts. So there is kind of a roadmap. But yeah, I guess I've always been a little bit surprised that I haven't seen a Wollongong, at least even you never really even see a discussion about it.
No.
It's kind of just, I guess there's a real opportunity there.
I guess to compare the situation, as a junior, you grow up and you play, the local club teams, and then you get selected into a representative team, an Illawarra representative team. Then you go off and play against all the junior Sydney teams anyway, in like the state championships and that kind of thing. So the pathway is there, but I think we just need to work on a way to sort of keep everyone happy because, as everyone gets older, they have different things going on with work or that kind of thing. So I think if there's a clear pathway into that, then it would really, just benefit the game in that area and Sydney as well. So yeah, something to look to. Yeah,
it's definitely something to look forward to because you kind of had to go, right? You ended up at Nudgee, is that right?
Yeah, so I was just at a public high school in Wollongong up until year 10, and then was lucky enough to get offered to go up to Nudgee for rugby, but also for schooling as well because it's just as much an impressive academic school as it is a rugby school. So was lucky enough to attend there at the end of year 10, and it's just a complete it was a complete and utter shock to the system, to see how the other half live, you could say. But I just really enjoyed the whole experience, boarding, living with your mates, training every day, and then being in a really good school environment, I guess, which sort of led me on to the wanting to become a teacher, I guess, because how could you not enjoy that experience at such a quality school? So yeah, it was a good place to go to school, that's for sure.
I had a similar experience. I went to St Joseph's College in Hunters Hill in Sydney, and I'm from Canberra. And one of the first weeks there, one of the day students said, "Oh, come hang out at mine for an overnight." We used to call them. So you go out Saturday night and stay at a mate's place, and we sort of pull up at this house, and it's this giant sandstone mansion thing.
the other half.
yeah, exactly. And I walk in and it's like beautiful, it's pristine, so clean, clean lines. Everything's like black and white and timber and porcelain everywhere. And then, that's cool. Have dinner, meet the family, whatever. We have, watch some TV, watch the footy, go to bed. Then the next day, my mate comes in and goes, "Hey, we're gonna go on the boat." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Go out into the backyard, past the pool, down, and they've got a private dock, nice boat there, ready for us to spend the day out on the water. So it was a complete just shock to my system. I just had no concept of that level of wealth in Canberra. I'd never really seen that before. So I completely appreciate what you say when it's like culture shock. It's really a different world up at some of those private schools.
Yeah, it was just cool to meet so many different people. I've got friends for life all over Australia, and some, who started out like living overseas and coming to Nudgee for school. So it's just cool to learn about different jobs and that kind of thing, and how it sort of affects different families and that. So yeah, it was a cool experience.
And I think that's an important point you just touched on around hearing people do different jobs. So seeing that there's other opportunities is really important for young people, because a lot of us are subjects to our environment. So if we don't see doctors, lawyers, podcasters, journalists, then we don't really know that those careers exist until maybe later on when we start to seek that out. So I think that's a really important point. And I certainly have had a similar experience where I've got friends and friends of friends in all sorts of different industries around the world. And typically if I land in a country or even a city, I can find someone who went to Joey's or know of someone who knows someone who went to Joey's, and we can connect on that level. So it's a really special kind of thing. And I'm sure you've experienced the same with, through your rugby travels and travels so far. Yeah,
it sort of ties in nicely together with, playing rugby, because you got mates all over Australia. Say, for example, the boys are playing the Reds this weekend, flying up to Queensland, catching up with mates at the team hotel, having a coffee, that kind of thing. Like, that's the sort of stuff you look forward to outside of the footy as well. So catching up with mates and hearing about what they've been up to the last 12 months and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a good part of it as well.
Now, you just mentioned you studying to be a teacher, that's right?
Actually, I've completed my studies. I did that a couple of months before I came down to the Brumbies in 2022.
Oh, nice one. And so have you had some practical experience teaching?
Yeah, so like as part of the course, you can teach in your final year with the intention to complete that year, like a conditional accreditation. So I was lucky enough to be a teacher's aide at the school that I was working at whilst finishing the course. And once I got my conditional accreditation, the school said, "Do you want to just start working here?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, why not? Like, I've already been here for a year. I know the kids. I know the layout of the school." And they were really awesome. Like, the principal was a big rugby fan and allowed me to, leave early if I had to go to training or have a day off if I needed to, do anything else. So really, really good experience for me. Again, another completely different schooling setting. So it was a behaviour school, like a smaller scale school, only 35 students, with sort of 5 or 6, maybe four minimum that would rock up per day, depending on their scenario. So like, kids with poor sort of home lives and situations involving, juvenile detention, that kind of thing. So it was an awesome experience, and I think that's sort of given me the opportunity to look at the different types of environments that you have growing up and that kind of thing. And it's cool to have those experiences leading into like what I'm doing now.
That must have been really rewarding working with some of those kids when you see that kind of light bulb moment go off when you're trying to teach them something and you just see them get it. That must be a super rewarding feeling.
Yeah, it was different to like normal teaching, you could say, because my degree is in physical health education, so it's just standard PE teaching. But this was more so about, building rapport with students and getting to know them before you can then make a difference. So 70% of it was sitting down and listening to them, talk about what's going on, and then trying to figure out how to get them to do any kind of work or, give them a sort of safe space to come, because sometimes at home things aren't going well, most of the time. So it was cool to learn on the run as well, and I took a lot from it.
And I think, would it be fair to say that that's improved your ability as a teacher? Because I do think that that's a really important. I've always subscribed to the philosophy that if you know your students, or if you're a coach, you really know your players on a personal level, you'll get the performances that you want out of them. So do you feel like having that experience where I guess the mandate is really get to know these kids before you start trying to teach them, has that improved or given you, I guess, a different view of how to teach a classroom, command a classroom?
Yeah, I think it carries over into a lot of things, you know, like when you go to uni, there's only so much they can teach you without actually getting out and being hands-on. So I think I learnt a lot more than I did in that year of teaching it took me 6 years to finish the course. But I just really enjoyed being out there and learning on the run and developing those kind of skills as you go, because that's how you learn. You know, you can't just learn everything and then expect to go out and kill it straight away. So it was good to sort of develop as I went along and enjoy it at the same time.
I see it a bit with certain universities. There's a real focus on the theoretical. So lots of graduates come out super knowledgeable, really smart, know their stuff. But then when it comes to an office setting or when they're working with a client, because they don't have that level of practical skill, we often see them write academic essays instead of plain English. And it's interesting because as someone who's working there, you then have to coach them to say, hey, this, like if you're submitting this to a professor, awesome, job well done. And it's awesome that you've done the research and all of that. But we need now to take that and make it into something that these people can understand, because otherwise, like, what are they paying us for?
Yep.
So I think what you just touched on, that practical element of study is so important. And I know it's challenging at the moment for universities to get enough placements and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I completely agree with you. And that idea of, you know, when you come into a team environment or you come into a new workplace, if you've got a level of understanding, like I need to build some rapport with these guys first or these people first, you'll see the results start to accelerate, in my view anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah. So how did you end up at the Brumbies? So you finish at Nudgee, come back to Wollongong and start. I read somewhere you played for Randwick initially and then started playing for South. So how did the sort of slingshot back down south happen?
Yeah, you could say it's a slingshot. Leaving Nudgee, I could have very well stayed in Brisbane and played club up there and went to uni, you know, but the opportunity came up to go to Randwick, because there was like a UNSW sort of connection there.
Yep.
Uni, live on the campus, play for the club, and they had this big connection there, which seemed like a really good idea at the time. And I'm very grateful for Randwick for setting me up like that, because without that experience, I don't think I would be where I am, because you don't sort of know what could have been. I left Nudgee, come down to Sydney and lived on the uni campus at UNSW and studied an education course, but it was different to what I end up finishing. Did that for about 6 months and then realised that the course that I actually wanted to do was better suited at Wollongong Uni, where my parents live. So I decided to move out of the uni campus and move back home with mum and dad and go to Wollongong Uni and study the PE course, but still play at Randwick for the rest of the year. So I was driving back up to Randwick, training 3 nights a week for Colts and that kind of thing, and did that for the rest of the year. And then by the end of the year, I sort of reassessed and said, am I getting the best out of it? Because it's a big effort to drive an hour and a half, sometimes an hour 45, 3 times a week, and play games and that kind of thing. And I just wasn't getting enough out of it for the amount of effort that I was putting in. So there was no sort of, no pressure or anything from Randwick in that regard. It's a great club. It's one of the best clubs in Australia. But for me personally, I just decided to, I had a few connections through Wollongong, junior local coaches and that were at Southern District. So Jay Tregonning, who was the ex-Wallaroos coach, he was up there. He was still helping the boys out last year, I think, and then a couple other coaches there as well. So that was the connection to Southern Districts, and then sort of just decided the year after that I was playing for Randwick to go to South, because they had a Wollongong Uni connection as well. So that all sort of worked out, and then just never looked back. Played at South up until 2022 when I come down to the Brumbies, and just absolutely loved Southern Districts. Like I don't think I would not be where I am today without the people at that club. Like not only my mates, but the volunteers, the coaches, and that kind of thing. Because that's where I developed that like real enjoyment for not only just having fun on the footy field, but wanting to get better. Just due to some coaches that I had, some mates that I had, and that kind of thing. The whole environment there was just an amazing place for me. I really enjoyed it. Now I've got lifelong friends there. I still catch up with some of them now, and a lot of guys still reach out from the club and ask me questions and ask for a few tips here or there. And anytime I can get back to the club, I try to get there. So finished up playing there 2022, and during the 2022 season, Dan Palmer, the old forwards coach for us last year, who's now at Leicester with Dan McKellar, he had a connection with our forwards coach, Duncan Chubb.
Yep.
Who runs Wandering Bear Sports and Caffeine Gum.
Yep.
Shout out to his businesses. He's a fellow podcaster as well. He'd love this. Yeah. A great man, Duncan.
Yeah.
So he's good mates with Palms, who they played together when they were younger and that kind of thing. And then it just so happened that I think it was like a Thursday during the season, we were doing scrums and lineouts typical unit session, and Palms was in Sydney, and he said, I'll come down and have a look. And then Chubby pulled me aside before the session. He said, look, Palms is here, this is your chance if you really want to make an impression, because, I had been playing some good footy up until that point. Define what good footy is, though. It could have just been a couple of good scrums or something like that. So, it's debatable. But, Palms come down and watch us train. And, we had a typical unit session, went hard at each other like Southern Districts normally does. We have pretty good forward pack, traditionally. So we went hard at training, and Palms pulled me aside and asked me a couple of questions about, like my, height, weight, like gym lifts, that kind of thing, standard stuff. And then, have I had any opportunities with the Waratahs or anything like that? Like I hadn't had anything from the Waratahs. Like I trained with them a couple of times or once during the COVID sort of break, because they had guys in and out and that kind of thing, just helped them out, that kind of thing. So, and then, he just sort of said, well, keep doing what you're doing. We'll be in contact if we need, that kind of thing. And went away, continued playing the season. And then it was just it was actually like a Friday or a Friday morning, the day before a game. He texted me, Dan Palmer, he reached out and he said, I'm in Sydney again. You want to catch up for a coffee? And I was like, oh, shit, here we go. Like, this is something that I really wanted, because I'd been following the Brumbies for such a long time. And being a young front rower, like, there's no better place to be in Australia, like, just the environment and the culture that's there right now,
and the lineage of unreal front rowers, going back to like Patricio Noriega in 96, and then Ben Darwin, Bill Young, Slips is there now, Benny A, Alan Alatoa, Scott Seo. Like, I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but there's this really, Dan in his own right was an incredible tight head prop as well. So this lineage of just incredible props. So I completely agree with you. Like, it should be the envy of many clubs around the world, because they just seem to churn them out year after year.
Yeah, like I can't speak highly enough of the environment that they've built, So, so Dan reached out. We went and got coffee, and he sat me down and he said, hey, mate, like, we don't have a spot in the squad, but what I can guarantee you is, you come down and do pre-season, play a couple of friendly games and just see what happens, like you never know what could happen. So, there was no necessary contract or anything. He just said, come down for a couple of months, we'll pay you enough to live, in Canberra. And I was like, yeah, sweet, let's do it. So, like, I went down and started training part-time with the boys, and was just on like a little bit of an academy kind of deal thing. The money wasn't great, but, it's not about the money. It's just about the experience, you know what I mean? So got to train with the boys, and then we ended up playing a couple of friendly games. There was one against the Tars, and one of my good mates who made his debut on the weekend, just gone, Harry Vella, unfortunately done his ACL.
Yep.
So he was going to be out for the next 12 months, loose head prop as well. So there was a spot that opened up, and Palm said, we'll do everything we can to keep you. And, true to his word, everything he said up until that point, he stuck by. So, the club signed me for the year on an injury cover contract, and then, started doing pre-season full-time, that kind of thing, and then ended up playing in round one. And now I'm, lucky enough to be signed to 2026 currently, and honestly can't see myself going anywhere anytime soon.
I love to hear that. It's funny, Palms he seems to have an eye for talent. So I was coaching, I've got two stories for you here. I was coaching a under-16s ACT side that Tom Ross and Mac Hansen were playing in.
Great man.
Yeah. And Tommy was our tight head prop. And the previous year I'd coached him at Darramarlin as well, so I was pretty familiar with his game. And Palms came down to do a session with them. And after about 5 minutes of live scrums, he pulls me aside. He goes, "Who's that redheaded bloke?" And so I said, "That's Tom Ross." And he said, "All right, I'll keep an eye on him." And Tommy's played a heap of super footy. The other player that he really liked was Tyrell Lomax, who's now across with the All Blacks, unfortunately.
Yep.
But there was rumoured to be a pretty heated discussion about when Tyrell was deciding whether he was going to stay with the Brums or sign elsewhere, that Palms was like, we really need to keep this guy. And, again, look what happened.
No, look, I can't speak highly enough of Palms, you know what I mean? I've said this time and time again, like when I made my Brumbies debut, he was the reason why I got my foot in the door. And then again, when I was lucky enough to make my Wallabies debut, he was there, and I said, "Mate, this is, I can't thank you enough from me, from my family. Like, I owe him, to the credit to being where I am today. He's a great coach, and yeah, like that's where it all started. So like, I'm pretty grateful for him, and I hope he's doing well over in England.
Yeah, I think he will. He's a very smart bloke, but just loves scrummaging.
Yep.
And he's got a really good way of taking. Yeah, people always laugh when I say scrummaging is kind of complex. It is. There's a lot of technical aspects to it, but he can take those things and explain them really simply and give you 2 or 3 things to work on, focus on those. And then once you have those, we had a 4th, we had a 5th, we had a 6th. He's quite an incredible coach.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure he's doing a PhD in neuroscience.
Yeah.
So like that in itself is impressive. You know? So
yeah,
he's also a great bloke. Like, having him around at training, that kind of thing, he's always up for a one-on-one chat and gives really good advice, as a front row, and he's been there and done that. So he was great. He was just unbelievable for me. Yeah.
So what are some of the things that I like to ask sort of technical questions of players, because I think that's an area of the game that we don't often hear players talk about. So what are some of the things when you're packing a scrum, in training or in a game, what are the things you're trying to achieve? What are you trying to do to your opposite? Or it's not your opposite. What are you trying to do to number 3, to the tight head prop, so that you can make sure you win your ball or disrupt their ball?
Yeah, I think as a prop, like, we get called meatheads, which is pretty fair. But
it's fair most of the time.
Like, I'm going to sound like a meathead saying I love scrums, but I don't care because, it's true.
But I think you have to, especially in the 3 jumper. I think you have to have some screws loose to really do well in that role.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I love the game, is because that's where you're the star, right? The 1, 2, 3, you're the superstars in that moment. And if you win that moment, you can set your team up to win the next moment and the one after that and the one after that, if you set that platform. So I think you have to love it. If you don't love it, maybe move your way back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, to your point, like, the first thing is it's mindset. You know what I mean? Like you say, you got to love it. Like, you genuinely have to want to dominate. And if you don't, then, you're not going to do it. Like, you got to actually believe that you can do it. So the first thing is mindset. And then secondly, you got to do your homework on your opposite tight head. You got to, understand what systems are in place. Like at the Brumbies, we're very detailed and we have a great system. We have a great scrum coach now, John Ulungia. I think I pronounced his name right, but everyone calls him Luge because it's, that's how it's spelled. So he's a great man, another offset of Palms, good mates with him and that kind of thing. So, we've got a really good system in place. You got to understand like what your role is within the system. As a loose head, you can only dominate if the other parts of the system are going well as well. So we have to have a good tight head who can get forward, and we have to have a good hooker who understands how to, attack different positions and that kind of thing. So I think that's what's really good about the Brumbies, is that it's not just all about dominating and getting and the meathead kind of stuff. It's the real technical and tactical stuff that wins us, those key moments. So I think to answer your question, the first thing is mindset, and the second thing is understanding what your role is within the system that's built.
I really liked what you said there about mindset, and you mentioned earlier like a will to get better. And I feel like this happens to every front rower earlier in their career. Is there one time or one player that you can remember that you just didn't have an answer for?
Yeah, I think the first time I went down and I started scrummaging against Alan, like he's just an absolute, like I could talk about him all day because he's just such an impressive bloke and that kind of thing. So and an incredible player. So like I think with the first time I went up against him, like was my real shock because it was like he's the pinnacle. You know what I mean? I think he's the best tight end in the world.
I agree with that.
Like all round, you know what I mean? So I think for me to go up against him, the first couple of times I was like, wow, this is real. You get that sense of like, this is what it's about. Like it's a big difference from, going from shoot shield into scrummaging against these kind of guys. And that's how you learn, you know what I mean? So to answer your question, I think it's the first time I went against Al because he really, made me open my eyes to realize how important this is. Every part of what you're doing is important. And like I said before, if you don't have, the right mindset or understand the tactics and your role within a system, then guys like him are just going to eat you alive.
Yeah. So I'll tell you my story. It was I was playing club rugby in Dunedin, down the bottom of the South Island. I was playing for the University of Otago. It was my first year playing first grade. I was 19. There was a guy on the other team. It was one of my early first grade games. The team we were playing with Southern, and the guy on the other team was a guy named Case Muse. I don't know if you know Case Muse, but at that time he'd probably played about 50 All Blacks tests. Big multi tight head prop. And he was at the back end of his career, so he'd sort of played overseas and he'd come back to Dunedin to play for Otago and play for Southern and kind of go out into the sunset that way. And I couldn't do anything with him. Didn't matter what I tried. I tried 10 different things and he just absolutely destroyed me.
Yep.
But then after the game, he sought me out. He sat me down. We had about a 40-minute conversation about all of the things he does, all of the things he does to work, all of the things he tried on me and the counters that I could use to try and stop him. So then the next time we played, he still dominated me, but I got better.
Yeah.
And he came up to me after the game and said, that was heaps better. Well done.
Because you actually knew what he was trying to do. So
Exactly.
You could counter that, yeah.
Yeah. And cool. I like what you said, doing the homework on the opposing tight head, because every player's got things that they like to do and they don't like to do. Every prop has positions that they like and that they don't like. Height levels, body angles and that kind of thing. Are you keeping a mental note of those things or do you have them written down? Like how are you kind of collating all that information?
Yeah, I'm a big pen to paper guy. Like I try and write as much down as possible because I feel like, I'm a bit of an overthinker as well. So in my head, there's a lot of stuff going on. If I write it down, then I can remember it and actually do something with it. So I do like to write things down and I got this idea from Palms again. He was, obviously, a really good tight head prop, and he gave me a good set of advice where he spoke about, he said that personally he didn't think he was very good at anything else other than scrummaging, which is fine, you know what I mean, because he did it exceptionally well. But he said that, if there's one thing that you could be really good at, why can't you be, world class at it? So he said, what's a way to get better? Like off the field, he had a diary where it was a scrum diary where he would write down, a SWOT analysis for every prop that he has come up against or potentially would go against, you know what I mean? So he's just got information on everyone and then, using that to, develop his own tactics within the system that the scrummaging forward pack that he's with, goes forward. So I think that's a good way to look at it. Like you got to figure out what works for you. And I think for me, writing stuff down on different guys, like I definitely do my homework week to week on the scrum that we're coming up against. But as Alou said, I always focus on the individual tight end that I could potentially scrum against and do a little SWOT analysis on them and meet regularly with the people that I think are going to benefit or help me prepare as best I can.
So who are those guys within sort of the Brumbies setup? Who are the guys you're spending the most time with, kind of discussing those things? And say you have a system, and it's really important to stay within that. But there's obviously tactics and stuff that go on within that. So who are the guys who you sort of lean on to develop that?
Obviously, you got James Slipper as again. I think he's the best loose head in the world. I'm biased, but
He is. I think, look, you can make an argument for anyone, but I think he's kind of, for me, like the prototypical loose head prop. Really good around the paddock. He's got good skills, does a lot of work off the ball, does a lot of work in defence, but he's a great scrummager.
Yep.
Now, it might have taken him some time, but he is an excellent scrummager now.
The thing that impresses me about him is, you talk about anyone that does anything well, like every rep that they do is the exact same, and that's because they've practiced it so much. And every time I watch him scrummage, it's the exact same. He does the exact same things. He's so consistent, and I think that's why he's so good. So I do take a lot from him. Another guy is obviously Alan. He's our leader, and he's again, massive influence on our forward pack and our club. So I go to him a lot. Unfortunately, he's going through rehab at the moment, but he's just been unbelievable in helping us prepare week to week. And another guy is John Alungia, our scrum coach. I try and sit with him once or twice a week and just chat scrums and talk about like planning and prepping for teams and that kind of thing. And I get a lot out of like chatting to guys like him because he's a hooker.
Yeah.
Well, he played prop as well back in the day, but he's a hooker, so he understands, and feels everything that happens in the scrum, and he's got a big focus on providing leadership to our hookers. So, and then that sort of feeds into chatting to our hookers. Billy Pollard and Lachlan Lonigan and Connell McInerney, who's unfortunately injured at the moment as well. But those guys are really stepping up this year into a leadership role, and I have to shout out Billy Pollard, who's my roommate, and also technically my landlord because I live with him. But no, he's really stepped up this year and really impressed everyone in his leadership, and chatting to those guys about because they drive the system that we have to prepare for and that kind of thing. So chatting to them constantly about what they need from us, what I can do for them. It's just an unbelievable environment to be in because you can have those conversations all the time. You can go for coffee, like me and Bill can talk about it at home. Watch video, all that sort of stuff. So there's endless amounts of resources for front rowers at the moment for us.
Yeah, and I think that idea of perspective, Alan's a really interesting case because he started his career as a loose head and then moved back across to tight head. So he's had the two sides of the scrum and really understands the key differences. But then again, as you say, the hooker really often within a scrum setup really drives everything. They're the leader, the linchpin, whatever you want to call it. So being able to have those conversations with those guys and understanding what they like to do, what they don't like to do, I think is really important. And I don't think it's something that the casual fan really understands. You can look at a scrum and go, wow, that looks cool, but there's a lot of tactics that go into that. So I think very cool.
I tend to say, like, when someone asks what it's like, I say it's like a physical game of chess. You know what I mean? Because it's like there's so many moving parts and that kind of thing. And I think what's good about the Brumbies is it's such an important part of our game. Bernie's really good at, making sure that everyone's clear in what he wants. So he really values dominant set piece and allows us to sort of try to get that as best we can. So it's a good environment.
Well, Bernie was the beneficiary of playing behind very dominant packs. They released him and some other really excellent players into space. And I think that can be a real point of difference for a team. If you have really strong set piece, it can mask a lot of a team's weaknesses because you can provide that platform and that dominance and go forward. And it shifts the mindset of the other team too, right? If you're going backwards all day, you start to go, I don't want to pack this. I don't want to pack this again. And then you'll start seeing teams opt for quick taps or to kick lineouts instead of packing down the scrum. And that's as a front rower, that's like the ultimate sign of respect. In my view, is that we've done our job here.
Totally, I agree.
So is there anything you do off the paddock to sort of help you get away from the game? You mentioned that you love it, but is there anything you do to kind of just pull you away from it for a time?
I think away from footy, I'm a pretty boring guy. Go for coffee, hang out with the boys. Like it's good in Canberra because it's the perfect environment for it. I'm not a big golfer or anything like that, but I do play every now and then with the boys for a bit of fun, something different. But yeah, like I said, like I'm a pretty boring guy away from rugby. Like I just like to sort of zone out, lay on the couch, watch TV, hang out with the boys, get coffee. And like I do really enjoy the physical part of the game, like in terms of the gym and getting better in that area. So we have a really good culture with the boys. Like we're always in there doing little extra gym sessions or just hanging out at HQ and doing recovery, sauna, hot colds, that kind of thing. We're pretty lucky to have that sort of setup that we do. So yeah, again, just speaking to the standard of the environment it's pretty good.
Who's the big dog in the gym at the moment?
Oh, it's definitely Al. Like we're all chasing him at the moment, but like I said, we're all working together. There's a specific corner in the gym, the squat rack. We call it the wombat corner because it's where all the wombats or the front rowers lift. And it's a pretty cool, it's a fun place to be because we all go pretty hard and challenge each other. But definitely Alan's at the top of the pack, and we all just chase him. There's
nothing like being in the gym with 5 or 6 guys who are all playing the same position. Yep. You're all sort of you're doing the same lifts. You're all within spitting distance of each other. Yep. And then just the competition that happens. It usually starts pretty quiet, and then by the end of a session, it's just like the manliest testosterone filled.
It's just
yelling.
It's just another piece of evidence for someone to describe us as meatheads. So, but I don't care. I love
it. Are there any other sports you're into? You're an NBA guy or an NFL guy?
No, I follow rugby league a bit because my younger brother plays NRL. So that's the only other really sport I really follow. And like I said, I'm pretty boring.
Your younger brother plays in the centres for Gold Coast, right? For the Titans.
Yep.
So you grew out and he grew up. Is that kind of what happened?
Essentially, yeah. He's a lot taller than me and a lot leaner. Yeah. He's again, going back to our childhood when we grew up, I got another older brother, Ryan, who, we had a really good time growing up together, all 3 boys, and a younger sister, Hayley, as well. So, we had a good time growing up, and me and Aaron used to challenge each other a lot when we were training, when we do our own training together away from the program and that kind of thing. So, yeah, he's it's similar to me in that he really enjoys the physical side of the game and getting better in that area, but he's just shaped differently.
Genetics, sometimes genetics, they play a big role.
Yep.
Did you guys ever play any footy together?
No, not together. Yep. So I'd be lying to say I haven't thought about that would be a pretty cool experience. So it's on the bucket list for sure.
Yeah, get him down to the Brumbies.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh dear. So I was going to ask you. You made your Wallabies debut last year, and from the way I've been hearing you talk about the game and talk about your journey so far, is it safe to assume that you didn't expect to get that opportunity when you did?
Yeah, I'd say that's true. When I first come down the Brumbies, it was just all about, I did, I've spoken about this before about writing goals down, that kind of thing. I had a list of goals written down up until making a Super Rugby debut. So once I did that, I was like, well, I need to keep going. I want to keep going. So the next stage is to get selected in a squad or something like that. So I had that written down, and did I think that it would happen in the space of 12 months? No, but as I started ticking off those goals, it's all I wanted, you know what I mean? And I just wanted it a bit quicker than I thought I did. So yeah, just grateful to, I think I have to credit the Brumbies for allowing me to, sort of express myself on the field and play, which allowed me to just play to the way I did, because it's just a really fun place to play rugby and, that kind of thing. So I think I wouldn't have done it if I don't think, I can't speak hypothetically, but the Brumbies is just such a good pathway into that next level.
Yeah, well, I think it's 1 in 3 players who play for the Brumbies or who have a Brumbies cap end up with the Wallabies. So
there you go.
Historically, it could be more, it could be less, but I think it's around 30%. So, it's an incredible program historically. Is that, you obviously internalised that goal and wrote it down. Is that something you expressed to the coaching staff or to the players as well, that was ultimately where you wanted to get to?
I don't think I ever spoke about it to anyone else, because as you go along, you just got to let it take care of itself. You know what I mean? The Brumbies is a successful environment, so you know, if you're playing your role, then that's all you can do. And I think if you just let it take care of itself and just enjoy the process of getting better, because there's no better place to roll into on a Monday than at HQ with the boys, you know. So it makes life easier.
Yep. And when you ran out onto the field for the first time, can you describe what you felt?
For Brumbies?
For the Wallabies, sorry.
Oh, for Wallabies, yeah. Like, mate, it's a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
That whole sort of Rugby World Cup experience was such a blur. Obviously, a really, really positive experience for me in my development, and results-wise, horrible. You know, let's not put it lightly. Like, it's a results-based business. So, in that regard, it wasn't the best. But I can't think of a better feeling than what I had when I was standing there with the boys arm in arm, you know, singing the national anthem and just the lead up to the game as well. Like, all the boys were really good. You know, we had a good crew there of young boys sort of just grafting away, you know, throughout the week. And then when I got named, everyone was getting around me. So that whole process was, and even to have my parents there to watch me play the week after for the first World Cup game, like that is something that I'll never forget.
I bet your parents will never forget it either.
Yeah, like I think they had more fun than I did, you know, sort of travelling around. Like, they were there for 5 weeks watching me play.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, even though we lost a few games, it was the shining light, having them there, you know, coming back to the team hotel, like a bit down and depressed from the games and that kind of thing. But having them there, they were only speaking positively, which sort of brought the mood up, and just to see them enjoying it was a reminder of like why I do this. So yeah, pretty special.
I think, results aside, a rugby tour, when it's good, it's awesome, and when it's shit, it's still awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing quite like going on a rugby tour, and I've never been to a World Cup, so I don't know. I don't have a personal experience to tell you there, but my dad, the last 3 World Cups has been there for the, you know, from start to finish.
Wow.
And some of the stories that he has come back with have been elite.
Yep.
And it's because everyone in those countries at that time, or in that city at that time, are open to rugby. So you can go into a pub and see someone wearing a rugby shirt, sit down with them, and maybe have the best night ever, because you've got that bond over a game. And I don't think many sports have that. I think in lots of other sports, you see an opposing shirt, it's trouble.
Yep.
In our game, it's, hey man, how you going? How's the team going?
Yep.
Which I think is a really unique aspect of our game.
Yeah, like, to think back, like, I had mum and dad there who were non-stop talking about, you know, the people that they met from different countries and that kind of thing, and, you know, ended up seeing someone that they grew up with playing or went to school with who was over there supporting, and like all that sort of stuff. So it's just rugby. I think that's what rugby has over the other sports, is that sort of vibe that you get from the big occasions. So it's good.
And a lot of the countries who play rugby are similar to Australians. You know, the Irish have so much fun. So do the Scottish. The French are a little bit snooty, but, you know.
Different.
Yeah, but I think if you go on a rugby tour as a supporter and you don't have fun, there's something wrong with you.
Yep.
Not the tour.
Yeah.
You mentioned just before talking to your parents and sort of helping you identify why you do this and helping you sort of bring that back into perspective. What is your why? Why do you play this game, and why do you keep coming back? Why have you chosen to pursue this as a career? Because it sounds like you really enjoyed being a teacher too. So why rugby?
I think it stems back to, like, you know, my childhood. Like, our family were heavily involved in sport. So, and I think family is just a massive thing and a massive reason for everyone. It's pretty stock standard to say, you know, your why is your family, but for me, it's the reason. It's the reason why, I think, because, you know, there's no better feeling than having mum and dad come down to the game, but then they also bring, you know, their friends. They come down, they're like, oh, they have such a good time, they're a good experience at the game, you know what I mean? And then, you know, bringing my brother or my sister and, like, you know, all that sort of stuff, they come down and watch and they have a good time and experience. They get to be involved. You know what I mean? So there's not many jobs where you can do your job but involve your family at the same time. You know what I mean? So I think back to the times where, you know, I was a little kid being a ball boy for my dad, coaching the Woonona Shamrocks in a grand final. You know what I mean? And like when they won, we then were a part of the win, you know what I mean? And we had, like, I vividly remember my dad hosting the Mad Monday, like at our house. And I was a little kid. I had to go stay at a friend's house for 2 days and I didn't know why. But now getting older, I realized what it was all about, you know what I mean? So it's just those little moments. So I do like to, you know, say that my why is my family, because it's true, you know, like it's everything. Like I wouldn't be doing this on your own is pretty cool, but it's even better to do it with your family.
I think any level of success is much more rewarding if you've got people around you, family, friends, if you've got kids, doing it with them in mind and including them in the process, I think is really just super special.
It's also good to, you know, give them, you know, because they like my parents did so much for me when I was younger, you know, like dad coached, mum used to drive us to training because dad would like be at work or, you know, whatever the dynamic was. So, and then now like they're just so heavily involved because they love it so much, you know, and I think it's just good to give back because like I owe them everything, you know what I mean? So it's pretty special. Yeah,
I was a ball boy back in the day too. I actually ball boyed the Gungahlin Eagles 2003 grand final, which was the one they won prior. So they're the current champs, as you know, but that was the one they won.
The Eagles.
Yeah, that was the one they won prior. I was a Gungahlin Eagles junior, and like to me that was what I wanted to achieve. Forget Brumbies, forget Wallabies. In that moment, that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to win a club footy premiership. So, you know, to be included in that as a little kid was really, really quite special. So I certainly hear what you're saying. You know, sharing that with your dad would have been such a cool experience.
Yeah.
Hey, this was fun.
Yeah, definitely. You really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. We'll have to get you back.
No worries.
All right, appreciate it, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
That's it for this week of the Give 'em Rugby podcast. I'd like to thank everyone for listening or watching. Please don't forget to like us on social media. We're at Give 'em Rugby. We'd also really appreciate a subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you really like the show, we'd love a review because that helps permeate the podcast across all of the platforms and will show the podcast to others who like rugby. Finally, don't forget to join the Give 'em Rugby Club, where we're going to be giving away exclusive content, early episodes, access to guests, access to me. So please don't forget to head over to giveemrugby.com and sign up for the Give 'em Rugby Club, which is just $5 a month. Finally, thank you to our sponsors, and we look forward to the next episode next week.
Look, in my line, I get ready. Feeling too trippy, get it cracking like a levy. I'ma show 'em all how to party if they let me. Cue the countdown and release the confetti. The party don't start till I get there. Sit us all in the rest and it ain't fair. I've been waiting on this moment, my